Imagine a world in the early 1970s. A small, curious child is born in East Lansing, Michigan, on March 26, 1973. His name, Lawrence Edward Page, but everyone would soon know him as Larry Page. His parents were not ordinary people. His father, Carl Page, was one of the pioneers of computer science, a man who believed machines could think like humans one day. His mother, Gloria, was a computer programming instructor. In a way, Larry was born into technology, as if destiny had already drawn a roadmap for him. But Larry wasn't just another kid running around with toys. He was different. He used to say, "I remember my childhood vividly. I always wanted to invent things." By the time he was 2, he was already playing with computers at home, not just playing games, but opening them up, looking at wires, circuits, wondering how they worked. While other kids were reading comic books, Larry was surrounded by tech magazines and science books lying all over his house. Life wasn't always easy. Money was tight sometimes. His father's health wasn't the best. Carl Page passed away when Larry was just 3. But even during Larry's early years, he saw the challenges of balancing dreams and survival. Instead of breaking him, those moments lit a fire inside him. Larry didn't just want to live an average life. He wanted to change the world. As he grew up, Larry became fascinated by the idea of information. How messy and scattered it was. He kept asking himself, why isn't there an easier way to find things in this massive sea of data? That question would one day shake the entire internet. But at this stage, he was just a curious teenager who loved music, technology, and tinkering. He even built an inkjet printer out of Lego bricks as a project. Can you imagine? A homemade printer built by a teenager just because he wanted to see if he could. He joined East Lansing High School and wasn't exactly the most popular kid, but he was quietly building the foundation of something bigger. Teachers remembered him as shy but brilliant. Friends said he was always thinking, always questioning the way things worked. Inside Larry's heart, there was a dream forming, a dream too big for a small town. He knew he needed to go beyond. The turning point came when he got into the University of Michigan, where he earned his degree in computer engineering. There, he wasn't just learning, he was exploring. He worked on solar-powered cars, studied artificial intelligence, and started thinking about how technology could solve humanity's biggest problems. And then came Stanford. This was where fate had arranged a meeting that would change not just Larry's life, but the life of every single person watching this video today. PART2, Stanford University, the heart of Silicon Valley, the birthplace of ideas that would reshape the world. When Larry Page walked onto that campus, he didn't just feel like a student. He felt like an explorer entering a new world. He was there to pursue a PhD in computer science, but deep down, he wasn't sure if he was meant to stay in academia forever. Something inside him told him that his destiny was bigger, wilder, something that wouldn't fit inside a classroom. It was during this time that he met Sergey Brin. Sergey was outspoken, witty, a little more extroverted than Larry, the kind of guy who would argue passionately about any subject. At first, they didn't even get along. Some people say they even annoyed each other, but that friction turned into something extraordinary, a partnership. One night, Larry had a dream, literally a dream, that changed everything. He dreamed of downloading the entire internet onto his computer. Most of us would wake up, laugh, and forget about it. But Larry didn't. He thought, why not? He started working on a project to analyze the links between web pages, trying to figure out how important each page was. Larry and Sergey began working side by side, filling whiteboards with ideas, lines of code, and wild possibilities. They named their project Backrub. Yes, Backrub, because it analyzed the backlinks of the web. The system was brilliant. It ranked web pages based on how many other pages linked to them and how important those links were. But Stanford's servers started to groan under the weight of Larry's experiment. The project was consuming so many resources that the university had to ask them to scale it back. That's when Larry and Sergey realized this wasn't just a research project anymore. This could become something the entire world would use. Still, the world wasn't ready to believe in them. They tried to sell their technology. They went to major tech companies like Yahoo, Excite, and AltaVista, search engines that were already popular. Larry and Sergey offered to sell their project for just $1 million. And guess what? Nobody wanted it. Imagine that for a moment. The very technology that would one day be called Google, rejected for a mere $1 million. That could have been the end of the story. Larry could have said, well, I tried. Time to finish my PhD and move on. But he didn't. Larry looked at Sergey and said, in so many words, we can do this ourselves. They decided to turn Backrub into a company. They renamed it Google, a playful take on Google, the mathematical term for 1 followed by 100 zeros. The name symbolized their mission to organize the seemingly infinite amount of information on the internet. And so, in a small garage in Menlo Park, California, with borrowed money and old computers, Larry Page and Sergey Brin started what would become the most powerful search engine in history. Part 3. Picture this: a dusty garage in Menlo Park, California. Two young men working late into the night. The faint glow of computer screens lighting their faces. Empty pizza boxes piling up in the corner. This was not Silicon Valley luxury. This was survival mode. Larry Page and Sergey Brin had the idea, the code, and the vision. What they didn't have was money. Larry picked up the phone and started calling everyone he knew. Friends, professors, anyone who would listen. Most of them said, search engines? We already have those. But Larry didn't quit. Then came their first big lifeline, Andy Bechtolsheim, co-founder of Sun Microsystems. He saw their demo and was impressed. He wrote them a check for $100,000. On the spot, a check made out to a company that didn't technically exist yet. Larry and Sergey had to rush to open a bank account under the name Google Inc. just to cash it. With that money, they hired their first employee. But building a company from scratch wasn't glamorous. There were arguments about the direction of the company, worries about running out of money, and constant technical problems. Sometimes their servers would crash, and Larry would spend nights fixing them himself, writing code until his eyes burned. It wasn't just technical pressure, it was emotional. Larry was young, ambitious, but also carrying the weight of expectations. People doubted them. Competitors were bigger, richer, and already established. There were moments when Larry wondered, will we make it? But he also had a strange calmness about him. He once said, if you're changing the world, you're working on important things. You're excited to get up in the morning, That excitement kept him going. Slowly, Google started to attract users. People noticed that Google was faster, simpler, and gave better results than any other search engine out there. Word of mouth spread. Soon, more and more people were typing that strange name, Google, into their browsers. But popularity brought a new challenge. Money. How do you make money from a search engine without ruining it with ads? Larry had a bold idea. Text ads that were relevant to what people were searching for. No flashy banners, no annoying pop-ups, just useful ads that actually helped users find what they were already looking for. This idea became AdWords, and it turned Google into a money-making machine. Suddenly, Google was no longer just a small startup in a garage. They moved into a proper office, still modest, but it felt like a palace compared to where they started. Employees were excited. Larry created a culture of innovation, encouraging everyone to think big, take risks, and not be afraid to fail. But Larry's journey wasn't just about business. Deep down, he still carried the same dream: to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. That mission became the soul of Google, guiding every decision they made. Part 4. The early 2000s, Google was no longer a secret. It was exploding. Millions of people around the world were using it daily. The word Google even started becoming a verb. People would say, just Google it. But success came with its own storm. Larry Page, still in his 20s, suddenly found himself leading a company that was growing faster than anyone could have predicted. At first, Larry and Sergey tried to run Google together as co-presidents. They made every decision side by side. But as the company expanded, investors worried that two young founders might not have enough business experience to handle such rapid growth. It was a painful moment for Larry. Google's board decided to bring in an experienced CEO, Eric Schmidt, to lead the company. Some would have taken this as an insult, maybe even stepped back, but Larry didn't. Instead, he used those years as a learning period. He observed Eric, watched how big decisions were made, how to deal with politics, how to manage thousands of employees. Quietly, Larry was preparing for the day he would lead again. Under Eric Schmidt's leadership, and with Larry and Sergey's vision still guiding every move, Google expanded far beyond search. They launched Gmail, a free email service with massive storage. They acquired YouTube, a move many criticized at first, but which later became one of the smartest acquisitions in tech history. Google Maps was born, letting people explore the entire planet from their screens. Android, the mobile operating system, became part of Google's empire, eventually powering most smartphones in the world. But Larry was never just a businessman. He was a dreamer. He would walk around Google's offices asking employees, "Are you working on something that will change the world?" If they said no, he encouraged them to think bigger. His philosophy was simple: focus on impact, not just profits. Behind the scenes, Larry faced personal challenges too. He had a rare vocal cord condition that made his voice weak and raspy. Speaking in public became harder and harder, and sometimes he had to conserve his voice for important meetings. It was frustrating. The man whose vision was so loud and clear in his mind couldn't always express it with his voice, but Larry didn't let it stop him. If anything, it made him more focused. By 2011, Larry was ready. He took back the role of CEO, this time fully prepared. His leadership style was quiet but decisive. He streamlined Google's operations, cut down on projects that weren't working, and doubled down on the ones that mattered. This was the era when Google truly became a tech titan. But for Larry, it wasn't just about size or power. It was about staying true to the mission, making the world's information accessible and useful, no matter how big the company became. And yet, Larry's journey was not just about business success. His next chapter would be about building the future, literally shaping the next era of human progress. Part 5. By the mid-2010s, Google had become more than just a search engine. It was a global powerhouse, shaping how billions of people connected, worked, and lived. But Larry Page was not satisfied. He wasn't interested in running just a successful company. He wanted to build the future. In 2015, Larry made one of the boldest decisions in Silicon Valley history. He restructured Google entirely, creating a new parent company called Alphabet. Google would remain a part of Alphabet, but now there was room for something bigger, a place where wild, moonshot ideas could be pursued without being tied to search and ads. It was a visionary move. Under Alphabet, projects like self-driving cars Waymo, life sciences research Verily, and futuristic internet balloons Loon got the freedom to grow. Larry wanted to give these projects the oxygen they needed because he believed they could solve humanity's biggest problems. He famously said, "Lots of companies don't succeed over time. What do they fundamentally do wrong? They usually miss the future." Larry refused to miss the future. Personally, Larry kept a low profile. He preferred staying out of the public spotlight, spending time with his wife, Lucinda Southworth, and their 2 children. Friends say he loved nature, sailing, and working on big, world-changing ideas quietly. He wasn't the loud, charismatic kind of tech leader. He was thoughtful, introverted, and more focused on action than words. Even as he stepped down as CEO of Alphabet in 2019, Larry remained deeply involved in guiding its vision. He didn't crave fame or daily headlines. He wanted to make sure the company he built would continue to dream big long after him. And what about life lessons? Larry Page's journey teaches something powerful. He started as a curious boy with magazines scattered across the floor, dreaming of making something useful. He faced rejection, doubt, and challenges. Yet he never gave up. He turned a college project into one of the most important companies in human history. Larry's story is a reminder that big dreams are scary. They are difficult, and they often sound crazy to others. But that's exactly why they matter. Larry once said, "Always work hard on something uncomfortably exciting." That's the heart of his philosophy. Don't settle for the easy path. Don't settle for the ordinary. So, the next time you type something into Google, remember this. Behind that little search bar was a young man in a garage who dared to believe that the entire world's knowledge could be organized and shared with everyone. Larry Page's life is not just a story about technology. It's a story about vision, courage, and the power of asking, "What if?" And if you're watching this right now, maybe that's the lesson for you. Your crazy idea, your wild dream, your what if moment could be the next thing that changes the world.